Podcast.
Welcome to Our Weird World. I'm your host, John Henson, and I am a busy little beaver today. I've got so much going on, and I can't talk about any of it. It has nothing to do with this show. I'm just a very busy person. Anyway, that was cryptic. Today means nothing. Today, second time we have done this topic, but we're looking at some strikes from history. 3 different labor disputes from people who just wanted to go to work and not be suicidal, basically. It's just like, hey, it doesn't have to be fun. Like, we know it's work, but can it just not suck as much as it goes? Like, I want to go to work and feel like I'm not going to possibly die or be horribly disfigured. That's it. And companies heard that at one point and was just like, no, you are our slaves, And so we've come a long way, like right now, because like, look, I've been in HR, and a lot of times employees can be ridiculous. All right, like the problem that employers have now is like, oh, can we just work from home? Which is reasonable. It's a reasonable request, especially now. Like if you run like a McDonald's, no, you can't work from home. You have to be at the McDonald's. But like, man, if you work in an office somewhere and all of your department meetings, especially like if you work somewhere where like everyone lives in a different part of the world, and so like all of your company meetings are already on Zoom. You already see all of your clients on Zoom. You never actually have to have people come into the office to do business. Like if you can do all of your work on a computer, you should absolutely work from home. There's no reason other than control that a company should make people come in for an office job where they're not working face to face with clients. Like that's just the fact of the matter, right? And so like, there's that side of it. And then like, I don't know, other dumb requests like, oh, can I have pet bereavement? Can I just, whatever, just dumb stuff like that, where that's how far we've come. It's no longer, hey, can I just work 8 hours today instead of 12? Which I know but nurses also get like 4 days off in a row after that. So like, it's a trade-off there. But just stuff like that, where we've come a long way. And I'm going to show you how far we've come today with these 3 stories. We're looking at the Banana Riot or something like that. I don't know. The Harriet-Henderson strike. And our first story will be of the Thibodaux Massacre.
Story time. Story time. Story time? Story time.
In October of 1887, the Knights of Labor, which sounds like a racist group. I don't know if they were. The Knights of Labor organized a 3-week strike against sugarcane plantations in southern Louisiana. The area had recently come under control of the Louisiana Sugar Producers Association. Communists, probably not, but whatever. But they controlled 200 of the largest sugarcane plantations in the state. This Producers Association did very little to provide suitable conditions for their workers, who were mostly black, but also were often pushed to the point of complete exhaustion, which it's southern Louisiana. That's like the most humid, gross place on earth. It doesn't take long to get to complete exhaustion. But to make things worse, the cotton industry in general constantly had a high death rate among its workers, both before and after the slavery era. Obviously, like cotton being adjacent to the sugar producers, and they were kind of really closely related. And so they kind of just took after each other. And so the cotton people, they're always dying. The sugar people also always dying. It's just a mess down there. Even more, the Producers Association maintained a practice of withholding 80% of a worker's wages until the harvest was complete. And that sounds super illegal, right? Like, imagine you're going to work and you've got this giant project, right? I'll do my own, employment, for example. Like, we have to build a website for a company that hires us to do it. And let's say that website takes 3 months to build. It would be like my company only paying me 20% of my paycheck until that website was fully launched. And that's crazy that people put up with that. The strike organizers, when they decided to stand up for themselves, demanded an increase in wages to $1.25 per day. Not an increase of $1.25, but an increase to, because they were already making less than $1.25. And again, it's 1887, so like that went a lot farther, but still only making $1.25 a day is nuts. They wanted bi-weekly payments, pretty standard, and for the workers to be paid in actual money rather than the pasteboard tickets that could only be redeemed at company stores, which often drove up the prices on the items workers needed to survive and left them with little to no money in the end. And I've talked about that before, where that's what like a lot of like coal towns and mill towns used to do, where like that was the biggest employer in the town. They had these villages where all the people work, and like, sure, they provided you housing, but like what they paid you was basically like credit for the company general store. And like that money was only good in that general store. And they would mark up the prices on everything in those stores so that you would have nothing left for yourself at the end of the day. Because the sugarcane harvest was about to take place around this time, the strike legitimately threatened that year's crop. In response to the strike, the Sugar Producers Association leaders appealed to Louisiana Governor Samuel McHenry, who had formerly been a plantation owner, so he didn't want to put up with any of this. In response, McHenry called 10 infantry companies and an artillery company of the state militia to go down to Thibodaux, which was considered the central point of the strike and was conveniently populated mostly by black people. The militia got into town and began evicting workers from plantation housing and attacked a group of strikers in Pattersonville, killing as many as 20 people. On November 1st, the day that the strike was set to officially begin, strikers hidden in a cane field near the town of Gibson began firing on white replacement workers, wounding 4 of them. And over the next 3 weeks, strikers routinely shot at replacement workers to intimidate them, wounding several and actually killing one of them. Even though at least 10% of the strikers themselves were white, media outlets reported the events as a budding race war exclusively between black strikers and white plantation owners, which is not accurate. It was like 90% black strike workers and white plantation, but still, it changes the narrative. Taylor Beatty, a district judge, plantation owner, and a member of the Sugar Producers Association, and also a former member of the Knights of the White Camellia, which was kind of a KKK type group. He formed the Peace and Order Committee in Thibodaux, which had no designs of, peace. He declared martial law and recruited 300 white men for a paramilitary group to definitely just keep the peace and absolutely not kill black people all willy-nilly. But just to be safe, Beatty began requiring Thibodaux's black residents to show a committee-issued pass in order to enter and leave the city, for like their own safety, and definitely not to try to organize into their own militia and start the race war. On November 21st, 2 black men were shot in Thibodaux. One of them died. At that point, Beatty ordered his troops to close all entrances to the city and prepare for the war. It's every racist white guy's wet dream. The race war is finally starting. 2 days later, disgruntled strikers who didn't particularly like being trapped in the city ambushed 2 men and left them wounded. A local volunteer regiment, the Clay Knobloch Guards, rushed to the scene to investigate and were also shot at by the strikers. These guards returned fire and killed 6 black people and wounded 4 others. From there, all hell broke loose. Race war is on. White people ran throughout the city with their giant rage boners, rounding up and killing black strikers and their families, even if those black people were not doing anything. Known members of the Knights of Labor were singled out first. I said it sounds like a racist group earlier. It's not. More like a hokey HR group. But they were rounded up first, with white people combing the streets and the woods on the outskirts of town where others were hiding. Based on various reports from area newspapers, as many as 50 black people were killed in and around Thibodaux over the next 3 days, most of which were found by swamps and in shallow graves in the wooded areas around town. Following the massacre, the strike was suspended and the workers returned to the plantation under the original Sugar Plantation Producer Association rules. White Democrats in the Louisiana state legislature quickly passed laws to disenfranchise black people in the state, strengthen racial segregation, and enacted other Jim Crow laws, just because. Labor laws were not revised again until the 1940s as part of the larger civil rights movement following World War II. Instead, many black plantation workers ended up joining the Great Migration to the northern and western states to escape the racial oppression and find fairer work. In May of 2017, descendants of the black workers involved in the Thibodaux Massacre formed a group to honor the victims, while the University of Louisiana Lafayette Public Archaeology Lab worked to verify a mass gravesite in Thibodaux with plans to provide proper burials for the victims in various church cemeteries in the area. Way to go, Louisiana! Moving on. On March 30th, 1899, the United Fruit Company was formed after a merger between the Boston Fruit Company and a number of trading operations owned by a guy named Minor Keith. God, talk about a guy who was destined to grow up with like Napoleon syndrome. Just, you named him Minor. Not Major, he's Minor. So like, he's going to need to feel super important for the rest of his life. This new company was led by Andrew Preston, who had also been a prominent player in the fruit trade by forming a huge refrigerated distribution network that actually revolutionized how fruit was transported from tropical countries over long distance while maintaining freshness. Together with Keith's vast railroad network and plantations in Central America, the company quickly became immensely profitable. In all, the United Fruit Company controlled more than 250,000 acres of land in Colombia, Costa Rica, Cuba, the Dominican Republic, Jamaica, Honduras, and Nicaragua, and employed roughly 15,000 people. And by employed, all right, you can definitely assume that they were barely getting paid and only in company credits, which could only be used at the company stores, which obviously marked up the prices. Is the same thing as the Thibodaux situation, right? Even more, the company structure involved several divisions that were all led by white people who didn't care too much about their minority subordinates, mostly because they thought that the regions they operated in were full of backwards, uneducated, subhuman people that were getting an opportunity for a better life by working for United Fruit. And that sentiment still exists today, and it's crazy ignorant, right? Like, we're going to employ some people from another country because America's so great and these subhuman mouth breathers should feel privileged to work for an American company. Like, they're just as competent, if not more so, than a lot of people in America. But whatever, you keep being doofusy. I don't know. Anyway, by 1909, United Fruit controlled practically all transportation and communication in the regions they operated, including the ports where bananas were shipped from and radio stations that people tuned into, which was weird. They used the radio to communicate shipments and all that stuff, but it was also like entertainment. So like they owned not only the ports and the ships, but they also owned this network of radio stations. To make things even better, The company then announced a pay cut to all of its laborers in Costa Rica down to $30 a month, which obviously sparked protests. And because labor strikes never go well, a timekeeper ended up shooting a Jamaican man named George Reed after he refused to take the pay cut. Reed's death prompted more protests, where at least one other laborer was shot and killed. Following the announcement of the pay cuts in Costa Rica, United Fruit requested 175 Guatemalan troops to occupy protesting plantations until the strikers went back to work. However, British Vice Consul Godfrey Haggard, who represented Britain's ruling portion of Guatemala that would later become Belize, he investigated the living conditions on the plantation and concluded that the strikers had legitimate grievances. United Fruit obviously disagreed, and another 8,000 workers officially organized into the Artisans and Laborers Union. For the next 5 years, tensions remained really high, and smaller outbursts of violent protests sprang up around United Fruit's various properties, all while United Fruit continued to purposely make things worse by segregating their employees and placing different racial groups in charge of others, namely like white managers who were racist toward the Black West Indians, who then in turn didn't like the Spanish-speaking laborers. Like, look, white people get a ton of flack for being racist towards minorities, but like Hispanics are also like pretty tribal in their own right. Like Jamaican or like, I know like Cubans and Puerto Ricans don't like each other. Mexicans probably got beef with some of them. It's all very different, right? Well, when World War I began, workers became even more desperate to gain and maintain stable employment, which ultimately gave more power to United Fruit. However, hopeful native workers started to grow annoyed that West Indian immigrants were already holding jobs, which added to the racial division inside the company. On May 9th, 1914, 2 Jamaican workers were attacked by 4 Hispanic men. One of the Jamaicans, Alfred Essen, was slashed in his hands and face with a machete before being shot to death. The next day, a group of Jamaicans went to a Hispanic camp near Tijuana to get revenge. Although they didn't find Essen's killer, they did kill 2 other Guatemalan men. 3 days later, not Tijuana, but Tijuana, 2 different places. 3 days after that, Guatemalan troops arrived at United Fruit's district headquarters in Quirigua, and began harassing and shooting black laborers all willy-nilly, because that's what you do, killing several of them. The army then invaded other farms, looting homes and killing more black workers. For more than a decade, like this continued on for years, where it's just super hostile with everybody. No one's like actually doing anything, but like sometimes laborers would protest, the Guatemalans would come in and shoot all the black people, and like that was just life. For more than a decade, laborers continued to protest and then were subsequently violently squashed, while United Fruit became increasingly more intertwined with Central American governments. They even set up their own kind of secret service to gather intelligence among protesting workers and rebel groups. And also, like, just to make sure all the governments were playing nice with each other. United Fruit's efforts actually ended various political disagreements between countries and more or less satisfied the United States' interests in them before they would have to get involved. By 1927, United Fruit, though, was beginning to struggle. It had lost nearly 40% of its labor force due to disciplinary, removals like strikers or medical issues because malaria was still a giant thing down there. Even worse, Colombia's government had grown increasingly liberal and ordered an investigation into United Fruit's work policies, which raised morale among the workers, thinking that the company would finally be forced to improve their working conditions. Well, guess what? On November 12th, 1928, Colombian workers submitted a list of 9 absolutely insane, totally unreasonable demands to United Fruit. Here they were. 1, stop hiring subcontractors. Okay. See, that doesn't mean a lot to a lot of people, right? But like employee classification is a huge thing that I deal with a lot, where it's like, if you hire someone as a subcontractor, That payroll doesn't have to really go on your books as payroll. It can just be a business expense, and that is taxed very differently. You also aren't supposed to control a subcontractor, but who's going to really investigate? Anyway, it's beside the point. The second demand, provide collective insurance. 3, provide compensation for work accidents. Seems reasonable. 4, provide hygienic dormitories and go to 6-day work weeks instead of 7. Not even asking for a full weekend. Just give us Sunday. Increase daily pay for workers receiving less than 100 pesos per month, which is less than $1 a day or $1 a month in today's money. They wanted weekly pay. Whoa. Chill out. They wanted to abolish company stores and the payment coupons. And they wanted to improve company hospital services. United Fruit immediately rejected all of those demands, obviously. So the workers went on strike. On December 6th, an army regiment was dispatched to deal with the strikers, setting up machine guns on the roofs of buildings and at the corners of the main square in Magdalena. After issuing a 5-minute warning for people to leave the area, the soldiers then opened fire on a dense crowd of people following Sunday Mass. General Cortez Vargas took responsibility for 47 of those deaths, though the exact number has never actually been confirmed, but it was actually believed that as many as 2,000 people got gunned down in the street that day. No one talks about that. No one talks about how 2,000 people were just mowed down by machine guns by the government. Okay. Or, not necessarily by the government, but like by, a corporately contracted military outfit, which is nuts. Like, just imagine like the people at Apple just decide to stop working and Tim Cook just orders the National Guard to go out into the courtyard at Apple's headquarters and just start mowing down all these workers. Like, it's essentially the same thing that's happening here. The killed strikers were gathered up and actually tossed into the ocean or buried in mass graves. Many workers then fled the area to hide out in the mountains, while others stayed and tried to avenge the deaths of their coworkers. Which that's crazy. Like, imagine liking your coworkers that much that you would want to avenge their death. My coworkers are cool, but if my job killed them, I don't know that I would feel the need to avenge their death. I'd be like, all right, I think I'm just going to quit. I'm going to hand in my 2 weeks now. Anyway, if you're my coworker and listening to this, sorry, but I feel like you'd do the same if it was for me. Many of the company's buildings were destroyed in Sevilla as the Colombian military continued to shoot at protesters. Meanwhile, American media outlets grabbed a hold of the story and portrayed the events as communists who had unfairly risen up against a corporation so as not to truly represent how awful things actually were. Classic capitalist American media, am I right? It's these communists wanting a day off to not work. How lazy. These lazy little libs, these commie little libs just want to only work 6 days a week. Bruh. These corporations would be making such a huge sacrifice, and they want to get paid more? They just want everything. They're so ungrateful. Anyway, the strike ultimately led to the 1930 election of liberal President Olaya Herrera, which only caused more massacres and property destruction between United Fruit and its workers. Through 1950, we're 60 years into this conflict. As many as 200,000 people were killed in ongoing political unrest stemming from the original Banana Massacre that happened, I don't even know when. Meanwhile, United Fruit, they keep going. They're still super profitable. And they were actually involved in a CIA-sponsored military coup to depose Guatemalan President Jacobo Arbenz after he declared that 210,000 acres of uncultivated United Fruit land should be redistributed to landless peasants in the country. You want to just give our land that we're not using to homeless people, to the poors? Gross. CIA, let's get rid of this guy. And then they did. The CIA ultimately used United Fruit boats to transport troops and ammunition and successfully sent Arbenz into exile. Today, United Fruit You haven't heard that name in a while. You know why? Because they are now known as Chiquita Brands International. And as of at least of 2022, that's the latest numbers that I was able to find, they were valued at $3.1 billion. So enjoy your Chiquita blood bananas. I think we're a Dole family anyway. I used to see Chiquita bananas a lot. I think it's a lot of Dole now. So, but you out there, you eating some Chiquita bananas? Huh? Yeah, it's the blood of hundreds of thousands of Hispanic workers on those bananas. It's probably a lot more automated now, but you get it. Anyway, last one here, a little bit of shorter story. In the early 1900s, David and John Cooper opened cotton mills on the opposite sides of the town of Henderson, North Carolina. The competitiveness between the two mills led to a high demand in productivity, which obviously led to a lot of unhappy workers. Why? Because they're busting their balls to try to beat this other competitor, and they're not getting rewarded for it. So labor unions, which by now had exploded, learned of these two mills in Henderson and sent organizers in to negotiate for better working conditions. By the 1930s, because it took that long for anything to happen, 1,000 mill workers in Henderson were members of a labor union and accounted for roughly 14% of all members throughout the entire state. On November 15th, 1958, this is almost a 60-year issue, workers called for a strike after a deal wasn't reached. And in response, John Cooper decided to hire replacement workers. By February of the next year, the mills were operating with only 5% of the strikers continuing to work. The remaining strikers reasonably responded by shooting out the windows at the mill's headquarters. A truck driver was pulled from his cab and beaten because I guess he was still working for the mill. Dynamite was planted and detonated at a strike organizer's house and in the boiler room at one of the mills. After the blast, North Carolina Governor Luther Hodges sent a quarter of the entire state's police force, as well as National Guard units, to the city to stop the violence. Henderson's not a big town. Like 1,000 mill workers in Henderson, and that's not even all of the mill workers, but like Henderson's probably a town, at least back then, maybe 5,000 people at most. Luther Hodges, governor, sent a quarter of the state's police force and the National Guard to stop the violence. In July, 8 organizers were convicted of conspiracy and sentenced to 6 to 10 years in prison, but their sentences were eventually reduced and the mills returned to a full workforce and, eventually got decent working conditions.
All done.
There you go. The second edition of Strikes are in the books. As bad as we like to say things are now, it's better. It is better in a lot of ways. Like, you may hate your job now, but oh boy, it could have been so much worse. You could hate your job so much worse. So I don't know. Be thankful that, you're not just going to work 30 hours a day for 8 days a week or whatever it would be. That's not possible, but you get what I'm trying to say. Anyway, let's see what we learned today.
What did we learn?
Number 1, Louisiana. Also a super racist place because a ton of black people live there and whites just can't handle that, So just the town of Thibodaux massacred. They shut the whole place down. They blocked people from getting in and out because people didn't want to work in this humid summer heat for every day. Oh, so ridiculous. But a lot of people were killed, and that's just, it's what happens. Number 2, the Banana Massacre. 200,000 people, possibly as many killed, including several thousand just mowed down by machine guns in the middle of the street in Colombia. And number 3, Chiquita Bananas. That's who did it all. They don't want you to know that. That's why they changed their name from United Fruit to Chiquita. But just remember that. Next time you go into the grocery store, you want some nanners, make some nanner pudding, and you see some Chiquita banana, you're going to have blood pudding on your hands. Because, that banana was picked on the backs of 200,000 little Hispanic people who got yeeted off of this planet for just demanding better conditions. So there you go.
What did we learn?
Next week on Our Weird World, we're doing another part 2 with some more morbid massacres, because alliteration, I just like alliteration. That's all it is. But 4 more massacres that have happened in history. We're looking at the Parsley Massacre, the stories of Mutsuo Toi, Wu Bum Khan, and Bruce Pardo, who all just kind of committed mass shootings, mass massacres. It's going to be one of those episodes next week. But, man, they're pretty crazy. So come on back for that. Thank you so much for continuing to listen. Keep telling all your friends.
This is a podcast.